Sorry, had to clear my throat. Let's see here. Alrighty. In a world which Rebecca is no more, there can be only one. One man, one very sexy man, can engage like no other. One host to rule them all, and end the questions bind them. To force people to answer in the form of a question. Jordy LaForge is no host. He reads rainbows, wears stupid slap bracelets on his face. Also, he's blind. He can't even read the screens. But there is the last one that can do all these things. That is why I, the ghost of Sean Connery, shall return from the dead to host Jeopardy. Sure, SNL made it popular. They made me seem stupid and slow, often dim-witted. Also, a bit of a lazy man, which is actually accurate. And given that they haven't done anything relevant or funny since, well, then, I think it's time to make it happen. Because you're the man now, dog. So write your congressman now and tell them, nay, demand from them, the ghost of Sean Connery for Jeopardy. There can be only one. And if that doesn't work, tell them that undead representation matters, and that should scare those whips into giving me the job anyway. Yeah, you know where they are talking about. Boop.
This is Crashed While Loading, the fusion of entertainment and information.
Hello there.
Weekly updates and opinions on video games,
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
movies,
I'm about to do to you what Limp Bizkit did to music in the late 90s.
TV shows,
This is the way.
This is the way.
and so much more.
JJ, what do you want to do tonight?
Off. We need to go on a quick adventure.
Hello, as I choke on my own spit, people of the internet. Sorry. For those of you that don't live on planet Earth, yeah, fucking spring hit hard and killed everybody with even a remote allergy. I died 5 times this week, thankfully. Christ-like, I recovered every time. Luckily, Easter was nearby, so I had a lot of Easter energy to revitalize myself. And, wow, I am really, like, choked up. I've been really, it was fucking awful. And everyone's like, do you have COVID? No, I don't have COVID, okay? Yes, I had a hard time breathing. Yes, I lost all my sense of taste and smell. Yes, you know, people dropped off around me like flies, but it was just a sinus infection, I swear. Sure, the temperature was 105, and I was on a respirator, just, you know, willy-nilly, but I'm sure it was just... No, it wasn't really that bad. It was just fucking sinuses are just the worst. I know everybody else is feeling it, at least in my state, and I seriously doubt I'm alone. We had a short rain, and after the rain was done, luckily I could see the puddles of urine. Sorry, that was actually pollen just gathering on the ground that looked like giant puddles of urine, which was great because it made me feel like I was in New York, but without the odorific smell of, you know, human feces and urines culminating and brewing in the streets, as is the way of, well, New York and L.A. and San Diego, and Seattle. I assume some of the big cities in Dallas, Denver, probably a very clean city, but still, big city, always smells like urine. Don't know why. But, yeah, so I've been, luckily, I can, you know, don't have it all in my head. It just drained directly into my chest, so now I just cough up, you know, ungodly amounts of thick, viscous fluid, like I'm a 75-year-old woman that smoked for 50 years, gambling at the blackjack table in Vegas in the 1970s. So how's everyone else's health doing? Good God. Yeah, it's awful. So anyway, welcome to Crashed While Loading, the 28th episode, now powered by adult ADHD, if you hadn't already noticed by this point. I am your host, Ashton Phoenix, and I appreciate you tuning in. Twitch.tv/Crashed While Loading, if you want to listen to it live, just as Scribble in the chat is doing, and reminded me to talk closer, so hopefully the horrible Sean Connery impression earlier was actually audible over the somber. Is it disrespectful to still do Sean Connery impersonations since he's dead? I mean, he's such a cool guy. I love the guy, so it seemed almost disrespectful not to remember him from all his wonderful movies, such as Dragonheart and The Rock, and that one where he said, "You're the man now, dog," and it was really uncomfortable to everybody in the movie theater. Also, I guess he was in like some Highlander or double agent thing. I don't know. He's known for other things, lesser things in my eye, but for me, he'll always be that guy from The Rock that was opposite of course, the great Nicolas Cage, who is the greatest actor of our time. And if you can't tell, it's been a very slow news week because I'm just kind of dragging all of this out. There's news to go over. Some of it's interesting, I guess. I think what I based that off of, the LeVar Burton wanting to be the host of Jeopardy, is probably pretty cool. I actually am totally for that because he's LeVar Burton, and why wouldn't he? He's perfectly qualified to host a show I don't watch or care about. Sorry, I know some people do, but I don't really care about the Jeopardies. It's cool, and I liked Trebek, but me, I'm also not a trivia guy, unless it's, nerd stuff. But I don't know who won the Polynesian War of 1812 other than Chick-fil-A, which is why they have the right to make Polynesian sauce. That's clearly the way I remember it. So, anyway, let's see what else is going on in real life. I actually going to see my dad this week. He's flying in from Washington State, and I'll be seeing him for the first time in over a decade, I think, now. It's been since I visited him up in Washington. I actually got to see Seattle on that trip before it turned crazy into the giant shit pile storm that it is now. This was while Bush was still in office. So I know that because the giant 11-foot tall Bush 9/11 was an inside job by the guy that smelled like dead skunks and had a rat's nest on his head was holding up. Yeah, it's a lovely city, best known for the Space Needle and pretty much nothing else anymore. Yeah, it's by the water. They film shows there, but I think largely they just comp in stuff now. They just like, hey, it's a Space Needle. Now you know it's Seattle. Yeah, like they did in, what's that one? Colony. I watched the latest season of Colony when they go up to Seattle, and there's the Space Needle. Or there was that one with Jessica Alba, which is the show I can't remember now. What was she in? Yeah, it was a futuristic show where they had districts and stuff like that, and it was in Seattle. That's because at the Space Needle, that's all it's known for anymore. But anyway. So, with him coming over, we naturally did the same thing that everybody does when family is coming over, and that is clean your house so that everybody that's coming over, we all pretend that that's how your house is all the time. When we all know, our house, when you live day to day, and it's just your family, you're like lived in, the family that lives there with you, your house doesn't stay pristine like it's the set of Full House with Danny Tanner in there cleaning it every day. So why do we do that? Like, we all know, if you actually do go by someone's house and they're like, sorry, the house isn't met, isn't it's like, they have kids' toys out because they have kids, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, no, they're going to judge. They're going to think we're slobs. No, nobody thinks that. You know why? Everybody lives like that. That's just how people are. Now, the only time you got to worry about someone judging you is if, you're on an episode of Hoarders and they found you buried underneath a pile of, 50 years worth of newspapers. Then probably going to judge you a little. Or like some people I've known, you go into their house and it smells like a lived-in litter box with piles of Duke on the floor. Also, I will admit, I get a little judgy when I'm not sure if I'm in an open latrine or somebody's living room. That's me. I'm judgmental that way. But if you've got kids' toys everywhere and, you could tell you maybe need to sweep, yeah, I'm not real worried about that because that's what our house looked like up until today when we spent 2 and 3 hours cleaning it. Now, did it need it? Yes. And did we need an excuse to do it? Also, yes. And does it look great? It does. It really, really does. And it smells springtime fresh. However, it's just, is it just me? Is it just some weird, social contract when you have friends and family over that don't live at your domicile that you all just acknowledge that, oh, yes, this is exactly how clean my house is all the time, even though you know that's full of shit. And you've seen it in the off times when you just come over out of the blue and know that this isn't always like that. But we all have a social contract that we all pretend like that's the normal state of being for people. Why is that? I don't know. I don't even know how that came about. I kind of wish it'd go away. I mean, yes, we it's spring cleaning. We needed to do it, and I'm glad it's done. But I'm tired of pretending all the time. Like, oh, you go, or especially when you go over to that one friend's house and they are that very small percentage of people that, like my mom, she is the 0.01%. She is a female Danny Tanner from Full House. She's a compulsive cleaner, like OCD about it. Her house does always look clean. So when you go over there randomly, she's got a towel out on the kitchen counter. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. My place is such a mess. I apologize." For those people, they also have a sickness all their own. And I love my mother, but she really likes a clean house to the point of, it's the fact that she doesn't flip the light switch off and on 5 times every time she goes in and out of a room is also amazing. But, anyway, so that's what I was thinking of while we were cleaning today. Also, in other things that I have done, I tried to watch Concrete Cowboy, which is a movie on Netflix starring Idris Elba. I never know if I say that guy's name right. I love him. He's awesome. I liked him in the Dark Tower movie, even though the movie was terrible. He was fine as Roland Deschain, and he's great in what's the Pacific Rim, Luther, his BBC series. He's a great actor, fantastic. So anyway, I tried watching Concrete Cowboy, and I got about halfway through it and realized I was bored out of my skull. And I love the fact that it was based on a true story of, these the black cowboys, and I forget what city they were in, and they're in the inner city, and they've got the horses and stables and blah, 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 blah. And his son comes in, and he's, going to get in trouble. He was from West Philadelphia, born and raised, and on the playground is probably where he spent most of his days, chilling, maxing, relaxing off school, and shooting some b-ball outside of the school when a couple of guys that he knew were up to no good, and they started making trouble, in his neighborhood. And so, he got into one little fight, and his mom got scared, and he sent them to cowboy concrete people over in Bel Air. And you know what? I'm going to go with that kind of worked. But that's basically the premise of the story. The mom couldn't deal with the kid anymore, sent him to his dad. His dad's a cowboy. You're going to teach him. It's the cowboy toughens a kid up story, basically. But it kept dragging over the same material over and over and over, and I got really bored with it. And maybe it finishes really strong, but that first 45, 50 minutes that I did give it, and I was really looking forward to it, I switched off and started watching Waterworld, if that tells you anything at all. Yeah. That movie's still terrible, too, but I still liked it better. Yeah, I don't know. Also, playing things. Outriders, I think I'm done. On the console version, anyway. It's either I just suck. I played Gears of War on the consoles. Sib and I played them together. We played the last one on PC because, Game Pass. But we've done dual screen of that stuff, and either I've gotten really shitty at third-person shooters on a controller, or it's just the game is overly twitchy. The server's lag might have something to do with why I seem like I'm right over the target but constantly miss. It also could just be that I suck as a gamer at this point. I don't think I do. I feel like I'm pretty good. Like, the demo I played on my PC, I had the sniper rifle and I was headshotting shit left and right. It seemed like I was doing good. But I'm also playing this on Game Pass on an OG Xbox One for that, like a first generation Xbox One, and it chugs. If I've managed to get my hands on a Series X, fingers crossed. I know there's a whole bunch of sales coming out this week or where they're going to go on sale. At this point, I'm even going to, if I can find it on the stupid monthly $35 thing, I'm going to buy it on that just so I can get the fucking thing and give a good review of it. Not that anybody else really has them right now or that there's any games to play on them really. It just chugs. And I was trying to convince myself that it was good on the Xbox. It's a good game. It's a fun game on the PC or I assume probably on an Xbox Series X. But when Sib came in and it was like one of the characters was talking, and it took a while took 2 or 3 seconds for the face textures to fully load in. So she looked like something out of the Toxic Avenger. For those of you that remember that, look it up if you don't. It's B-movie gold. And even she's not a graphic snob. Like, she doesn't really notice all the little details and things like that like I do. And she's like, wow, they look awful. Those are really ugly. And it was because they were low res. The game looks muddy. Like, the way it cuts back on the graphic fidelity to make it run on that system is just not good. It doesn't run well. And no matter how much I try to convince myself it does, it doesn't. It's just bad. It's all bad. So I think I'm done trying to play it on the Xbox One. Late night rum. Anyway, I'm not even lying on that one. It makes the show go easier, and also when I don't do it at 4:00 in the afternoon, it makes it easier to get away with day drinking when it's at night. It's just how these things go. So yeah, the game's good. I'm even tempted to get it on PC, but at this point, because it's on Game Pass on the Xbox consoles, it feels like it's only a matter of time before it comes to Game Pass on PC. And I would hate to spend $60 on it now, and only for a month from now to find out I could have saved myself $60 and played it later. I mean, the game's not going to change all that much. If anything else, it only will get more stable if I play it later. So I think I'm about done with Outriders, and I'll just concentrate on other games. Now that Sib's feeling a little better, we're going to probably play through Halo again or continue playing Halo again. So I look forward to that. Yeah, so there's all that. So in news, well, things got pushed back again. I feel like, I really need to pull this clip. It's Groundhog Day again.
This can only end in tears.
Yeah. So Mission Impossible 7, Top Gun Maverick, and an untitled Star Trek, I would assume movie, are all getting pushed back, along with a lot of other movies. Let's see here. We've got Maverick is going from July 2nd all the way to November 19th, which is a big one. And there's other stuff after this that I'll get into why I think all this is happening. I really think these studios are really trying to save movie theaters' asses because they realize, oh shit, we kind of, COVID dumped all over them, and then we kind of dumped on them, and they're really going out of business. And I'm sure someone started crunching numbers and realized, we kind of need each other. Yeah, they're like Brock and the Venom symbiote. They really, separately, they're both shitty, and together, they're Venom. Which, ironically, Venom 2 was also postponed. If you were curious about that, I don't remember the times, but I did it last episode. So when Maverick pushes back, it's taking over Mission Impossible 7's now former date. So MI7 Mission Impossible 7 is now scheduled to be out May 27th, 2022. So we're a full year and some change, a month, give or take. Month and a half. What's this today? The 11th? Yeah, close enough for internet times. So yeah, that's a pretty. They're not fucking around with this. And Mission Impossible 8 went from November 22nd to July 7th, 2023. So I think they're filming those ones back to back, like together, kind of in the way of The Hobbit and The Matrix sequels. The first one did not get filmed. Also, the Paramount Dungeons & Dragons film, which they don't have a great track record with Dungeons & Dragon films. I don't know if anyone remembers the one from back in the day. While entertaining at the time, if you had no idea what D&D was, after watching that, and then later on having played D&D, I realized that movie is garbage. There's a lot they could have done with it, and said it was basically... who was in that? I remember it had Jeremy Irons. I want to call him Ironside. He's a Transformer now. Jeremy Irons is the villain, and he's perfect in everything he does. He's really good. And then the protagonists were not good. That's all I remember. I think one of them was a Wayne's brother, wasn't he? I'm not even willing to look it up because I care that little about that movie. So anyway, Dungeons & Dragons, hopefully, I don't know what it's going to be about. Hopefully they do better than what they've done. Maybe they can actually pull in some, like, really good, who's it, R.A. Salvatore shit and get that done. That'd be good. May 2022 to March 3rd, 2023. So, like I said, man, these things are jumping back. And I guess the Star Trek film is being done by Fear the Walking Dead's Valinda Vasquez, who I watched the first few episodes of Fear the Walking Dead and realized it wasn't as good as The Walking Dead. And then The Walking Dead stopped being as good as The Walking Dead, and we stopped watching The Walking Dead. That's going to be out June 9th, 2023. It's crazy. That's how far these are being pushed back. Let's see here. So yeah, and the rest of this is there's a Jackass movie again for whatever reason, going to September 3rd to October 22nd, still this year. There's a Snake Eyes movie, which I assume is Snake Eyes the G.I. Joe guy, not Snake Eyes like, I don't know, some gambling movie about rolling 2 ones, or if anyone's ever role-played with Jazz, anytime she has a combat role and does it multiple times, she typically gets Snake Eyes. She's very good at that. That or Kishmish, also formerly of the show. And Friends. They're still friends. They just roll horribly bad. They're bad rollers. The dice bot hates them. And of course, what everybody has been screaming for is the Bee Gees biopic for November 4th, 2022, because there's like 8 people in England that care about that, I guess. I don't know. Who the fuck cares about the Bee Gees anymore? The Bee Gees don't care about the Bee Gees. I don't know. Is that like He-Man? No, you know what? I forgot about There's supposed to be a He-Man movie, but no idea. Nothing on the He-Man. Scribbles was asking about the He-Man movie. There's nothing on that. I don't even know if they've started filming that one. But I swear there was something on that. Maybe it got held up. There's one called Shrinking Treehorn. No one gives a shit because that title means absolutely nothing. And one that I don't know what it is, but I want to see it already. Ryan Reynolds and John Krasinski movie was pushed back to November 17th, 2023. Don't know what it is. Don't care what it is, but I want to see it because those are 2 really great guys. So also in the vein of movies, while we're on movies, Warner Brothers said they do plan. Let's see. Warner Brothers plans to make its biggest movies theatrical exclusives again in 2022. I don't know how long this will last, to be honest with you. I'm actually a little surprised they did 2022. I think they were kind of waiting. That's why they're announcing it now. They've already got this year's worth of stuff. By the way, Mortal Kombat here in the 26th. Yes, looking forward to that. But so they're gonna keep basically doing what Lizard versus Monkey did, and a bunch of other Tom and Jerry, which I know everyone was scrambling to see that, although I heard some people watched it. They said it was good. I thought it looked terrible. Tom and Jerry seems to be about 40 years past its prime to be making a live-action movie. That's coming from someone that grew up on Tom and Jerry and loves them. Just not enough to watch. It's just like the Smurfs movie. I don't really give a shit to see my childhood beloved friends in live-action roles with real people. Don't. But they're also probably not meant for me. I'm old enough to understand that. I don't really get upset that, oh, the movie's not made for me. How dare you make a child's cartoon geared towards children? What is wrong with you? You're a monster. I am a grown man, and I demand that the She-Ra cartoon be geared towards me. Although Strafe apparently loved it. I've never bothered with it. So, yeah, they're going to keep doing this thing. So the DC Harry Potter, they actually call it the Monsterverse, which I assume is Monkey versus Lizard. Yeah, clicking on that's Monkey versus Lizard. They'll play exclusively in theaters for 45 days before moving to the service like HBO Max. So, like I said with the other thing, with them pushing these things back because movie theaters need them, they're not going to do it as it is right now, day in, day, simultaneous releases. They're going to give them 45 days, and then it will go to a service like HBO Max. I think that's fair, It's better than it is now. WrestleMania 37, I don't know anything about. Once Hulkamania ended, WrestleMania 37 is happening right now. So wait, if you're listening to this on a podcast, it's already over. So I want to announce that Hulk Hogan, once again, was robbed in WrestleMania 37. He did not win the title. That's why no one is here, because they're all... I don't know that there's a lot of crossover with WrestleMania and people that listen to this show. Only because there's only 2 people that listen to this show. And apparently one of them is you that does both. I think everybody else is just they just didn't know I was doing it because I did it 30 minutes before I started, which is on me, really, and the fact that I was really busy today cleaning the house for somebody that won't even know it's been like that all the time, or it's not like that all the time. So anyway, like I was saying, yeah, so I think that's great. I'm glad they're kind of doing this. It's going to help the movie theaters because, like Batman, Black Adam, which, by the way, The Rock is looking fucking huge for that role. He is massive human being of a man. Yeah, it's just good. I love movie theaters. And it would be a shame for them just to fall by the wayside like they basically, are doing. I know I think we've at least lost one major movie theater. It was the Warren Theater here, and then Regal Cinema took it over, so it was the Regal Warren Theater something or other. I don't know how they renamed it. And it's still closed. All our Cinemarks are open. I think our AMC might be, but I don't go that far to town. I don't go that far to town.
Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
Yeah, I know. But our Cinemarks are open, and they actually seem to be doing pretty good. But, of course, where we're at, COVID-wise, we are not on. We've basically stopped the mask stuff. I know some, oh, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. But we're, excuse me. Speaking of COVID, let me wash this down. Alcohol kills germs. It's a known fact. So, but in our state, anyway, here in Oklahoma, we've actually opened up our vaccines. We've got enough people vaccinated, and the lines were getting good enough that we've opened them up to everybody, even from people out of state can come here and make appointments and get vaccines in our state. So if you live in a shitty state, anywhere not where I'm at, and you want a COVID vaccine, we have all 3 of them, and you can make an appointment and come here and get it. Congratulations, you're welcome. I just saved you from, I don't know, a respirator or something. I like to think I'm doing my part. I basically have cured COVID just with that statement. It's a fact.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Mm-hmm. So, in other movie news, I am baffled by this, and I think it's a stupid move, and yet I am still for it because of my own selfish personal love of Star Wars. What does this have to do with Star Wars, you're asking? Because you haven't said the tagline, you idiot. What kind of a host are you where you do this setup, and yet you don't get to the point, and you ramble on because your ADHD kicked in? $469 million is what Netflix paid for the Knives Out sequels. Rian Johnson is Knives Out. The one with what's this? I'm totally blanking on his name now. James Bond. And it had all sorts. It was a good movie. It was a good movie. Knives Out was. It was. I'm going to be honest. I figured it out about halfway through. Spoilers incoming, possibly. Nah, you know what? I don't need to spoil it. It was a decent movie, but I figured it out. I knew what was going on about halfway through. It was not as like, oh my gosh, it wasn't even to the level of screams like, there were 2 killers the whole time kind of a thing. That one kind of threw people for a loop because murder movies had never done that before. This one, as a murder mystery, it was fun. It was entertaining. I did like it. I don't know that I would sit down and watch it again because I think once was enough. And for all the shit I give Rian Johnson because he did the worst Star Wars thing in the history of Star Wars since the holiday special, and as far as I'm concerned, there's people that still defend the movie. I can't do it. He had no grasp of the universe. He didn't know how hyperspace worked, which is why he had the Holdo maneuver, which they spent a whole series of books trying to undo now, and off phrase, they spent a whole 9th movie trying to undo what he did, and it basically, and the trilogy didn't start out strong to start with, don't get me wrong. Abrams with Mary Sue did a lousy job, and Rian Johnson just compounded that with his subverting expectations. So why is that good? Because that means that $469 million, $234.5 million per film, by the way, is going to Rian Johnson to make 2 more movies, and that will keep him away from the Star Wars franchise because they still have not, as of that we know, canceled his trilogy of Star Wars movies. That is, last I've heard, still officially on the table, even if it is suspended. They announced it early on when Episode 8, before it had come out, Episode 8 came out, and then it just got quietly swept under the rug. And people hoped that they would forget about it. And we did not. And then they brought it up like, oh yeah, hey, Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy is still on the block. Meanwhile, we've got Favreau and Filoni, the Italian guy, the guy with the cowboy hat. That's awesome. You got him making Star Wars great again. Everything is great with Filoni. You've got him doing what he's done with Rebels, which we're almost finished with. We got 4 episodes left, and oh my God, that series is fucking awesome. If you don't watch Rebels because it's kid show, blah blah blah, or Clone Wars, you're an idiot. Watch it. There's things I've noticed about that. It's just fantastic. But he's got the Mandalorian, the stuff that guy has been doing with Star Wars. He's really, not to make a kitschy phrase, he really has made Star Wars great again after what they did with the trilogy. And anything that keeps Rian Johnson the fuck away from that, the better. And I think, honestly, to keep him away from Star Wars, I don't think nearly $500 million is enough to pay from any studio to keep that from happening. So Netflix, on behalf of Star Wars fans everywhere, I thank you for your sacrifice in keeping this man away from something that we love. Let him do his own little thing. Now, as for Knives Out, do I think this really needed a sequel? I am not surprised that there is one. I don't see. They're trying to make it like a franchise too. They're they're franchise building beyond the 2 films, so they're gonna have technically 3 films because there's the 2 sequels. There's talk about doing like a TV show based around this. Is there a huge demand for this? I don't really know. Maybe it'll be great, and I'm a complete idiot. But I also, it's Rian Johnson, so he's very hit and miss, at least with me. No. But it's kind of like Cameron trying to create an Avatar universe off of the one film. The one film was fine. Does anybody really even remember much of any of the characters in that? I know we had this discussion in our Discord chat. Remember, you can join the Discord, twitch.tv/crashedwhilloading. Click the Discord link. And there are some. I forget who it was. I think it was Indigo Jules. It's like, I like it, and that's fine. You're allowed to like movies. And I liked the movie. I just don't see it being a great series, to be honest with you. Cameron's really all invested in this Avatar thing, so who knows? But this is the same thing. Will they be able to pull it off? Could be. I mean, I hope for their sake that it does. I never want a franchise to fail. Like Jupiter Ascending. Cool idea. Terrible movie. Definitely shouldn't be trying to build a franchise on that. And you know what? The Wazowskis didn't. Which is why we're getting Matrix 4. When in doubt, go back. So there's, that. But that's a lot of movie. I saw one thing where supposedly Craig Johnson. Jesus Christ, I can't believe I've totally forgot 007's name now. Craig, is it on here somewhere? You'd think I would know this, like off the top of my head. It's one of those things where you're talking and talking and talking. Daniel Craig Johnson, isn't that the Coach? I think that's Coach from the old TV series. I don't know, the guy from Poltergeist. Who knows? But anyway, I heard he's like getting $1 million of that, which I guess that'd be 500 or 50 million per film. Not a bad payday if you can swing that. I'm willing to give it a try if anyone wants to throw 50 million at me. Ready to give it a try. So moving from movies to TV shows, I mentioned it earlier. LeVar Burton, Geordie LaForge, for those of you don't know that, or the guy from Reading Rainbow, if you're old enough to remember him. I'm looking at his picture. Other than the white hair, the salt and pepper look, he hasn't aged much at all. He has aged really well. Holy crap. How old is that guy? He's like, just fucking doesn't age. Yeah, and he debuted in 1976 and wow. He's been around for a long time. So anyway, he's thrown his hat in the ring for the host of Jeopardy. Again, I don't watch the show. I don't really have a horse to kill in this. But, yeah, I could see LeVar Burton. He did so great in Reading Rainbow. And, he's great as Geordie LaForge. He's perfectly... Scribbles in the chat says, so Netflix, watch the Lost Pirate Kingdom documentary is hot. It's a series. You know what? I watched the preview of that and thought it looked really interesting, but I haven't heard anybody talk about it. But now that I have, I probably will actually take a look at that. From what I understand, it's like they kind of recreate some of the scenes, but it is an actual documentary on the real world piracy in, the Caribbean and Cuba and all that stuff that happened back in the 1700s, I think it was. I don't know. I'm not real great. I like pirates. I like when, pirates fight aliens or pirates fight other pirates or the Caribbean or, a 7-story tall lady of the sea. But I don't know a lot about actual pirate history. Yeah, okay, so cool. It's recreated, according to Scribble, it's recreated and acted out a lot. And then I know the preview, I saw some talking heads talking about it. So that's cool that they actually recreated it. I kind of like those documentaries on things like that when they actually recreate it. It's kind of what I was hoping from Amazon's lore. based off the podcast, which is I highly recommend it. It's very good. The podcast is great. The TV show with them recreating it, the stories as they, like lore tells them, I don't know. It definitely, it was very generic. They didn't really go out. They kept it safe. They kept it very, very safe. So who knows? But yeah, no, that's cool. So the Lost Pirate Kingdom. Yeah, I'll definitely have to take a gander, take a look-see at that. Especially with my dad here, and we got to fill the time with something. Ironically, he's retired Navy, so he might actually enjoy something like that. We might have to sit down and watch that together. And so anyway, LeVar Burton, cool. I hope he gets it. I like him. I know there's other people I guess there's the guy the champion that won like 5 billion times in a row and is now a producer on the show. Sure, fine, but he's not LeVar. You got to have somebody like Trebek was. He's an icon, and LeVar Burton kind of has that. He has that fandom, and he has that. I think he could do a good job. I really do. I hope he gets that. So moving on to video games. Finally, I don't get this one, to be honest with you. There's a report that there is a Last of Us 2 remake coming for the PlayStation 5. And it cost it cost Sony quite a bit because there's a group inside Sony called Sony's Visual Arts Service Group, and they support other things. Like they helped get Naughty Dog get Last of Us 2 out of the door, things like that. But that group pitched to Sony doing a remake of the first Uncharted, which actually seems like that would be a better thing because that is a much older game, and it really could use an update. If you're going to remake something, remake that. Or The Last of Us, and Sony apparently went with The Last of Us. And then they took it from those guys and then just handed it over to the original developer, Naughty Dog, and made those people, they're going to help in a support role. Does that make sense? And then, of course, from the people from the Visual Arts Service Group got kind of pissed off, and a lot of them have quit and left the studio, and it's basically taken a huge hit. The Last of Us doesn't need a remake. I mean, just flat out. It's one generation behind, and when the PS4 came out, there was a Last of Us upgrade, basically. Not a remake, but a remaster. They remastered it. They upgraded all the textures. They smoothed a few things out. Basically, what is happening to the Mass Effect, Legendary did. It's a Mass Effect, remaster. And remasters are a totally different beast. They don't. A remake is like what happened from Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation to Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PS4 and coming soon with Integrate on PS5. It's a completely, or the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. It's a complete, top to bottom, brand new created game based off of the original content that follows along. That's the big difference here. The Last of Us holds up remarkably well. And yes, Ericus, don't even get me started on the idiocy that is that. Ericus in the chat said, Mass Effect, they're going to change booty angles. Yeah, because that was the problem. We are such a tender and gentle society, which is why wait till I get to hashtag Boycott Genshin Impact. We are we're just one comment away from me being happy. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, if you can't... What is that icon? Is that icon actually a butt, or is that just a giant purple plum? It's either a giant purple butt or a giant purple plum. I don't know what emoji that is, but cool. I don't know why I don't know why they're doing it. Honestly, it seems redundant to remake a game. You can still play The Last of Us right now, and it will feel like a modern game for the most part. I mean, there's small differences between the Last of Us 2 and Last of Us 1 in the way the mechanics work and some of that stuff. But for the most part, they play almost exactly the same. They really do. There's the crafting things and stuff like that. The visuals, obviously. It doesn't need to. It's definitely not like Uncharted 1, which really would at this point could benefit from a remake. Does it really need one? Probably not. But it is a much older game on a much older console, and it seems like that would probably be. I know I'm not in the minority on this, mostly because all the articles I kept seeing this headline pop up on site after site, and like, do we really need this? And I'm gonna be honest with you, for the few times I actually agree. No, we really don't. Maybe I'll be wrong, and it'll come out and it'll be awesome, but it's not that old of a game, and the story's been told. And maybe they're doing this because they have The Last of Us TV show in the works on HBO, I think it was. And the other thing that's really pissing people off about this is apparently 2019 Days Gone, which if I remember right, let me click on it. Yeah, that's the one with the guy in the zombies and the motorcycle and stuff like that. They rejected the sequel to that. They were hit up like, hey, this is really popular and a lot of people liked it. And it was one of those games. I didn't play it. I wasn't in the mood for a open world kind of a thing. But I've heard from a lot of people that it's one of those games that on its own is good. But the greater thing about it is they could see the potential if, what went wrong with that one, which could be used improvements, would have made a sequel like excellent. It just would have made it perfect. They could have learned so much doing the first one. If they had done a second one, it would have been that much better. But they didn't do that. They canceled that one, and they're going with a Last of Us remake instead. And this visual art service group, not real happy. They fucked off. And Sony's, I'm going to call it, I think Sony this generation is going to have some seriously major problems. The Xbox is really, I really don't have, I have all three consoles and a PC. I don't really play the console war thing. I have consoles that I prefer to play, I prefer to play my multiplayer games on the Xbox just because I like the ecosystem better. It's where my friends are. I don't have a lot of friends on the PlayStation. They have PlayStations, but we don't friend each other. I don't know why. I also like the Xbox controller better. But when it comes to playing games on my PlayStation, I love the Uncharted series, God of War, Spider-Man, the one with the mechanical robot animals, Horizon Zero Dawn. Took me a second. Those are all fantastic games, and I love all those games. I like video games. That's why I do this stupid podcast that 2 people listen to, 3 counting myself because I do have to do it. But I don't know why they're doing this, and it's just I think Sony is. I think they're really dropping the ball this generation. I actually got to see a PlayStation 5, by the way, in a Walmart. I didn't get it wasn't there to purchase. It was ironically, it was exactly what I reported on earlier. It was in a little plastic bubble with not nearly enough air ventilation. And oh my God, I've heard people say they were big. They are not joking. That thing is fucking monstrous. Like, seriously, there are people with bulldogs smaller than this fucking thing. It's just gargantuan. I don't know. I don't know why they bothered with the fins. They didn't need to be made any taller. Eye of Sauron looking thing at the top. It's just ridiculous. So, but sorry, I'm all over it's been a long day. That's why I try not to do this too late at night. I get a little sidetracked all the time. So, yeah, I think Sony's really going to be in a lot of trouble this generation. They dominated last generation, but Xbox knew they were getting their ass kicked. And they worked tirelessly buying these studios and making sure that this generation they were going to try to come out on top. And I think that is exactly where it's going. In fact, to the point, I don't have this on the show, but I did hear about it, where MLB The Show, which is a Sony Xbox or a Sony PlayStation exclusive, is not a Sony PlayStation exclusive. You're going to be able to play this on the Xbox, and not only are you going to be able to play MLB The Show on the Xbox, it's going to be incorporated into Game Pass day one of launch. You can play it, if you have Game Pass, you can play it on your Xbox day one, Meanwhile, the people over on the PlayStation are going to have to buy it because they don't have anything comparable to Game Pass. That's got to be a huge hit. Now, this was done through MLB. MLB is the one MLB the show, 2021. They produce the games. That's the MLB. They have all their licenses, blah, blah, blah. They are the ones that pushed this. And I don't blame Sony, I'm going to call them fanboys because they're the ones that are always like screaming, it's all about exclusives. Xbox sucks because it has no exclusives. Their exclusives are terrible. They're so bad. And then they buy Bethesda, and now everyone's like, Xbox can have Skyrim and Fallout as an exclusive. Well, that's not fair. MLB The Show is another one. They're not real thrilled. Although I get this one, me doing the horrible whiny voice aside, it's kind of a shit deal that is something that was going to be exclusive. Like the other console is getting included in a monthly service, Game Pass, Netflix type service. Kind of stings a little. I mean, it's great. I actually, my son plays baseball. I actually download it just to try it. Why? Because I don't have to pay anything. I wouldn't try it otherwise, which is exactly why Xbox and MLB are doing that. Because MLB wants you to play their game and maybe be interested in watching Major League Baseball. And they, from what I've understood, the more woke they go, the more they really need the numbers. Because, nobody gives a shit what you think on politics, football teams, major corporations. Just shut up and do what you're supposed to do. No one buys it. It's disingenuous, at least to me. Maybe there are people out there like, I really didn't think child labor was bad, but Nike over here told me it was. I'm going to go buy their shoes made by child labor. See where it kind of falls apart because it's mouth service. It doesn't really mean anything at all. So, moving on, before I go off on another tangent, CD Projekt Red is doing something apparently a lot of people thought they were already doing, but I don't know why people thought this. They're moving on to parallel development. So they're not giving up on Cyberpunk. I know a lot of people probably would think they should. And maybe they can, but they have to get this game. They have to No Man's Sky this, or Final Fantasy XIV this. They've got to get this game working. I don't think they should have released this on the Xbox One or the PS4. I think that's where they went wrong because apparently it played great for me, but it did have bugs. But it played great on my PC, and I've heard from people that have PS5s and Xbox Series X's, still a terrible naming designation, that it played relatively good on those consoles. But on the old one, it is flat garbage to the point where on the Sony, the PlayStation, you can't buy this digitally still. They took it down at launch after it was, the first week. It is still not up on the PlayStation Store to this day because it still plays so garbage. Now, you can buy the actual disc copy and try to do it that way, but they have got to get this game working. And then after that, what they do with Cyberpunk, I don't know. Apparently, they are still not giving up, though, because they have two studios. They have Vancouver studio, Ericus, official ambassador, Canadian ambassador to the show, obviously already knew this because he knows everything that happens in Vancouver and all of Canada. It's a mutant ability of his. He knows when a tree of syrup is tapped illegally. It's basically just pings off of him like a spider sense. It is actually quite intriguing and amazing to watch. He just looks in a direction and squints, and he knows that someone is stealing the syrup. That's how it works. Actually, many Canadians actually have that ability. He's just one of the only ones I know of. So, but they're going to go and they're using these studios to basically develop a Witcher and Cyberpunk at the same time. Kind of like how Call of Duty has 3 studios, and they release a Call of Duty every 3 years, and each one of those, it basically has 3 years of development. So they're always doing well. That's why they come out solid almost every time, and you don't end up with like a Cyberpunk when they do this stuff. The funny thing is listening to other people mention this, on another podcast, I think it was actually IGN's, they sounded baffled that CD Projekt Red was not already working on a Witcher 4. And I don't know why they thought that, because if anyone remembers, like, now it's 6-7 years when the first Cyberpunk trailer came out, and then you heard nothing about it for, well, basically 5 years. And then but between that, Witcher 3 came out, and that is at the point they really, really started to work on all the other on Cyberpunk and all that stuff. It took them 7 years from the time of announcing a game to releasing it, and look how it was released. Clearly, they don't spend a lot of time working on 2 games at once. They really focused on one thing at a time. And now that they have this other Vancouver studio that I think they bought in 2019, it's really up and running, and they're going to separate them out, basically, from the sound of this, like the multiple studios that Call of Duty uses. One of them, I mean, they'll probably both help each other, I'm sure. That's how, just the way, it's all one company. That's the way of these things. But they're going to have one focus on one thing, another one's going to get started. On Witcher 4, I know they announced, like, some time back, like, no, they have no plans for Witcher 4. Well, bullshit. I think they've probably been thinking on it, but they probably have been largely working on Cyberpunk. Now that Cyberpunk is kind of, they really need a win. Not to mention the Netflix series. There's a Netflix animated series coming out. I saw words of a board game, actually. Sorry, my dog is dream barking right next to me. I don't know if that picks up, but if it does, that's adorable, so it's okay. I don't know what she's got, but she's got something. But she's just dream barking. So they're gonna co-develop those, which is good, so that, you know, maybe we can get like one after the other every 2 or 3, probably 3 years. Knowing them, they probably have 5 years in development because they're very methodical. And for Cyberpunk's problems, it's a great game. It really is. I need to finish that. I really do. But yeah, for some reason, that people really, I guess they didn't realize that that was a thing. And lastly, here, just to go in, Ericus didn't know that he was making a connection to being being a giant wimp and being woke is not and I use that term in all the derogatory forms that it is. There's a certain level of, there is awareness, which is being, you know, aware of racial injustices and racial issues in the world, not disparity, prejudices, because not everything prejudice is based on race. There's some prejudices based on people's beliefs and things like that. Prejudice, as a rule, I am pretty much against. Unless, of course, it is people that like cauliflower rice, you're allowed to be prejudiced against those people. They're bad people with no taste because they like ghost broccoli. And ghost broccoli is terrible. And I don't care what you say that it's supposed to taste exactly like rice. It's just shredded cauliflower, and it tastes like cauliflower, which tastes like ass. Anyway, so you can prejudice against those people. Now, if their ideology is different, that's, you know, than yours, and you just disagree, that's a little different. Probably shouldn't, or based on their skin color, religion, sexual preferences. Am I forgetting one? Picking their nose, I guess. I don't know. Whatever you might hate somebody for, it's not worth it. They don't care. And if they do care, they're giving you that ability to have that power over them, which you should probably work on and not let other people's thoughts about you worry you so much. And I know it's easier said than done. Yeah, I get pissed off when people insult me too, but at the same time, I've been called worse by better. So, there goes that. So there's this thing called hashtag Boycott Genshin Impact, which, by the way, I just want to go on a quick reminder. Hashtags do, in fact, save lives and people in the world in general. A lot of people don't know this. The Rwandan genocide stopped by a hashtag. The military coup in Burma stopped by a hashtag. Child slavery and child trafficking, human trafficking, stopped by a hashtag. All of this no longer exists because a hashtag exists. Sounds stupid, doesn't it? Yeah, hashtags are basically completely worthless. And yet, I'm going to talk about this because it's dumb. And it amuses me. So there's this Boycott Genshin Impact thing. It twitted on Twitter. Marriage. What is marriage? Marriage is what brings us here together today. It was trending on Twitter. If you don't know what Genshin Impact is, it's basically the rip-off version of from the Chinese company. Was it MiHoYo? I think that's exactly how it's pronounced. It's MiHoYo. Yeah, MiHoYo. That's exactly it. Do better, Another one was Do Better, MiHoYo, and that's because they were saying it was being racially insensitive. That one of the dark-skinned characters, and when I say dark-skinned, I mean she might have been in the sun too long. She's not exactly, what you would call a dark-skinned character. Darkish, a very deep tanned skinned character. But apparently people were saying that it was depicting race in a bad way because people were afraid of this character, because there's never been an anime where somebody, a girl or some character is rude and hateful and angry, and other people are afraid of her, and other things say things like, she's so scary, in every anime ever that has ever existed, which is basically what this is like. It's just a giant open world anime with characters. Also, contrary to what a lot of people believe, racial sensitivities around the world people don't all focus on that the same way. Like in China, where a lot of the population is, what are they called? Chinese. Yeah. There's not a huge amount of diversity in a lot of areas of China. Probably not even at this game studio. It's probably, I would imagine, mostly Chinese people born in China that speak Chinese. Now, there are some places, for example, I didn't even realize this. I just assumed he was a Japanese guy, but Koji Fox over at Final Fantasy XIV, who is their lore guru, he's an American dude that just happened to learn Japanese, and he got hired over there all those years ago. And his name was Koji because he was I think his parents loved Japan, or one of them was. No, they were both white, but his dad or something was in military service. He fell in love with Japan, and so they actually named him Koji after that. That's his real name, but he's American white dude. So having never seen him, I just assumed based off the name that he was a Japanese guy. Turns out that's why you probably shouldn't assume people's based off their name, because he's just a white dude, but he's a cool white dude that knows a lot about Final Fantasy, and was really neat. I was watching a thing on Final Fantasy XIV and how they pulled it out of the fire. Anyway, besides that, so things like that a lot of other countries, they're not America is a melting pot. A lot of European countries, melting pot. Canada, melting pot. There's always other different types of people, but not everybody bases their day in, day out view through the racial lens that our media and Twitter apparently bases everything off of. Growing up, maybe I'm just speaking for me, I never knew about this stuff. I mean, I grew up in California and I moved here to Oklahoma, and I can tell you the first time I heard someone say the N-word. And I'm going to be honest, did I say it? Yeah, because you know why? I'd never heard the word before. It was a bunch of friends of mine. I think I was 10 years old, and we were going, I'd never done this either. It was a lot of firsts. They probably weren't the greatest of people to hang around with, but they were actually fairly innocent, other than the fact that apparently they knew this word and I didn't. But for the sake of radio and being online and not wanting my life ruined, they called it Negro knocking, although they didn't say that. And even saying that is a little uncomfortable for me. But fill in the blank of what they called it. And me, being stupid, 10, and raised not to see people by race, as, was probably good for my parents to do, I went home and told them what we did and what it was called. And I still remember their face going, duh. You don't say that, Mike. Whoa, no. That is a really bad word. And they had to, it just never had come up. They had no reason to teach me that word. They had no reason to hey, by the way, the world can be a horrible place. I was 10. I learned then. I was like, oh, well, why is that? And then, we went in, I got a history lesson that night. And guess what? I've never said since. Yeah, no, haven't done that because it's bad. It's very bad. But I remember when I first learned about that stuff. And then at 10 years old, so then I went to middle school and we learned more about world history and the country's history and shit like that. Stuff you learn eventually. But not everywhere is like that. Not everybody sees things like that. I still try. I've tried not to, even though there's a lot of people that would tell you that's the first thing you're supposed to now see is people's race, and I think that's just idiotic. I like to hate people based on the fact that they're near me, not because of the color of their skin. I just don't like to like people. I don't care. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Canadian. I hate you all equally. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's all good. So the reason they're going into this is that was one problem. The other part is apparently there's a thing called the hilly churl, which are they're humanoid creatures. I guess they could call them primitives. They're corrupted by whatever the dark something or rather is in this world. I played the game for a while and I thought it was fun, but it's also kind of grindy and got a little bored with it. But apparently one of the artists that were creating these had a picture of an Indian. Now everyone, they're indigenous people. Yeah, I get it. They're, but everyone, they call themselves that too. So I'm just going to call people what they call themselves. You can't cancel everything, every word. If you have to cancel everything, we're going to have to change the state of the I live in, which is Oklahoma, which if you don't know what that is, it actually means red man in the native tongues. So is that racist? Because that was named after the people that used the word to name themselves? Probably not. But apparently, eventually they're going to have to come after this state. Fighting Irish. They're not all drunken and they don't all fight. But that's okay. Why is that okay? You can't pick and choose this stuff. I've tried to be consistent. You either hate everything or you just got to let people do it. Especially when, according to the interview I saw, when it comes to the Indian thing, 90+% of them don't give a shit about things like the Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs. Nobody cares. They don't care. My wife, Cherokee. Do you know better than she does? No. You know why? Because you're not Indian, unless you are. But she is. Doesn't bother her. Doesn't bother her family. They don't care. Especially when you know the history of these things. Do you? Do you really? I'm kind of getting off on a rant here. But these things irritate me because they're claiming that because they used the Indian, for the reference material, that makes it racist. That the hero shows they show it as unintelligent and uncultured. Just like every kind of native indigenous, let's see, orcs and goblins and what are the moblins in the Zelda series? They're very similar looking. Personally, I just think Genshin Impact just ripped off shit from Zelda, from top to bottom. It's literally a giant ripoff of the Breath of the Wild. So there's that. And the people are like, our culture is not something for you to take and use, miho. My ho, yo. It's not okay. It's not funny. And I'm really disappointed. A lot of us are. By a lot of us, they mean, him and people on Twitter, which aren't really people. So it's just not everybody looks at these things. If we're going to go off the fact that you can't draw inspiration from real world occurrences and real world societies and cultures, we have nothing. Everything is based off of stuff like that. You can't the fantasy stuff. You get Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, Star Trek, Star Wars. All of these things are based off of what we know. We live on Earth. We live on planet Earth. We are people. We know what we're doing. We know the world around us. Even trying to make things fantastical, our influences are going to come into that. There's no way to not take influence from what you know in the world. And yet, for some reason, when that happens, if a small subset of clearly intellectually stunted individuals who are not overburdened with a large amount of schooling, as Malcolm Reynolds would say, get upset, they go to Twitter. And now, given, does this deserve all this? Probably not. It had 10,000 tweets collectively between the two. They had 100,000 tweets, which in the thing of it, and I looked at some of these. Let's see here. Let's go over a few tweets just for the sake of it, just to show you. Let's see here. Like this, the very first one is actually really good. My reaction when I saw the boycott Genshin was trending. It's actually a screenshot from the thing with a person reading a sign in the game of Genshin Impact saying, "Dear customer, please learn the difference between fantasy and realities. Yours faithfully, Mondstadt General Goods." And looking through a lot more of these, most of this, the reason it's trending is because a few people were upset, and then other people with a lot more common sense basically went on rants that I just did. And also there's a whole bunch of people that just did boycott Genshin, and they've, like this guy here that just took selfies of his very muscular arms and himself stretching for no reason. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. This one here, I don't read Chinese, so I don't know, but it's just a picture of her in her cosplay costume. Let's see, there's Squidward. Basically, most of this is just people being like, this is the dumbest thing ever. One person that circled the United States, Canada, and Europe and then said, shut the fuck up. Hey, just so you know, the world doesn't evolve, I assume they meant revolve, Twitter, around your standards. I actually agree with that person. So that's where this stuff comes from on Twitter. A lot of it gets so blown out, like a small subset of people get on there, they make a complaint, and then it starts to trend because everyone is telling them how stupid they are. And honestly, that is a good thing to happen. But unfortunately, then places like, let's see, this is PC Gamer. I also saw this on IGN, I think. I saw this on several websites. Glob onto that without any nuanced, actual thought or any cognitive ability whatsoever to go behind it. And this is what we get. We get an article that I end up going on a 15-minute rant about because these things drive me absolutely nuts. If I mentioned that I'm not a big fan of gaming media, I probably should, which is why I am glad that I am not in gaming media. I'm an opinion guy. I come on here, I tell you some news that I see that it's interesting, and I think that's cool. I also give you my opinion. I'm not a journalist. I've never been to journalism school, which is why I have the ability to think for myself, I like to think. And that works out well for me, and the 5 people that listen to this stupid show. So that works out. So overall, this is basically a big nothing burger. It is kind of hilarious. I think, according to some people, they think this actually has a lot more to do with the fact that the game's not delivering on its rollout DLC as fast as they were supposed to. Also, the fact that it's grindy and a giant cash grab. I have my problems with Genshin Impact. There's a reason I don't play it, but at the same time, getting pissed off about it for stupid stuff or any game like they do with the 6 Days in Fallujah just irritates the shit out of me, and that's fine. That's just who I am, and I accept that because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, like 8 people like me. One of them is my mom. Hi, Mom. I love you. So with that, I think I've done enough. I know I've definitely gone over my time here, and it's a shame too because I didn't even get to play my new.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah, but maybe next time I'll have a reason to actually play that. So, I guess the people that are on Twitter would be a good reason to have played that. I missed my opportunity. So anyway, where's the thing? I'm supposed to play a thing. There's definitely a...
Julie, do the thing.
There it is. Gotcha. All right. So, appreciate you tuning in. Ericus, Scribbles, thanks for listening live. Remember, twitch.tv/crashedwhile-loading. Go to the About section, click on the Discord button, and join us live. Join us after the fact. Either way, just join us on Discord. If you've got news that you find interesting, I don't think I've missed anything. I think most of it. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So, yeah, that's it. Appreciate you tuning in. I am Ashton Phoenix, and yeah, that's it. I'll just see you, next week, whatever. What are you doing? What are you wearing? I'm gonna wear something nice myself. Got my Baby Yoda shirt on, so try to dress up a little fancier. Spruce the place up a bit. Stop talking now. Okay, bye. Music, as always, is provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek to hear all his latest video game rock covers and original music.
This can only end in tears.